Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going? Which goes,
Not too bad.
we did,
I'm in a room that's the same as all as before, but the camera is different, and I didn't test it out or nothing. So we might actually even have a bit of a delay between my sound and my visual. So sorry out there, folks. This is this one's on me.
doing it live,
Doing it
doing it
live.
live, doing it live. That's it. Which goes,
Anybody that gets that reference, comment down below.
yeah, doing it live. So today, which goes, we are going to be going through current, some of the current remakes or sequels to episodes and trilogies that have been going on for a while. So there's a bit of a gap, or just like sequels that are trying to recapture what once the trilogy or movie that preceded them.
Yeah, and let's face it, Paul. It's becoming a modern phenomenon. So much so, and we get to do this again. Check in the top corner if you're watching video on demand, because and link in the description down below. We did a video almost 2 years ago, or I think more than 2 years ago, that was titled "The Longest Gap Between Sequels," because we talked about all of the years between the first Wizard of Oz and the second. What prompted that? It was the fact that so many movies were coming out that were entries in franchises that were 20 or more years apart. Okay, some of them we cheated, they were only like 18. But the famous one that still hasn't managed to make it out, which was the thumbnail for that, was Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
So still struggling to get there is per Cruzy.
yeah.
That's,
It
that's
really
a
feels
rough
like
one.
Maverick really can't get out onto the screen yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bad.
Well, like okay, let's not bury the lead. As far as I'm concerned, you can do a sequel. People go, "Oh, I'll never do sequels." Yes, you can. Can you do a third entry? Oh, we already talked about it. It's tricky to get it right, but it can be done. Then there's this idea of can you have, whether you've had one or two or three films before, can you have a 20-year gap and come back successfully? Can you recapture the magic? Paul, you kind of brought this up as a topic because you had seen, was it Bill and Ted made you think of this?
Yeah, Bill and Ted Face the Music. I was watching it, and the first thought when the credits rolled was literally just like, it's not the best sequel, but man, that is really in line with the rest of the series. Like, it didn't feel like there was an actual, like, what, 20 year, 30 year gap kind of thing to Bill and Ted's like Excellent Adventure to this. So like it's kind of one of those things where it's like I watched it and I was just like that could have been made like a couple of years after the last one.
Yeah.
So which was Bogus Adventure. But yeah, so like after that when we were having a conversation about what we kind of want to do, I was just like, well, since we've got like we were both just like since The Matrix is coming out, which is Ghostbusters Afterlife just came out as well. So we were just like, these are films, and like hopefully Top Gun eventually. These are films that are coming back, like 10, 20, 30 plus years after the original kind of thing. Now we understand that Ghostbusters is not, it's about what, 5 years. But
Yeah.
like the other ones are kind of more capturing kind of from 20 years. And it's just like how well are they going to do recapturing the nostalgia, the tone, the tempo of the original kind of movie. So that's where we're coming from.
And I've caught it out of the corner of my eyes. We're not supposed to be looking at comments when we're talking to each other, but I caught it out of the corner of my eye. I thought Matrix would start this conversation, not Bill and Ted. Lol. Yeah, everybody assumes you're going to go straight to Matrix 4, but no. The truth behind it all is you're more likely to hear us talk about Bill and Ted or the upcoming Clerks 3. Because actually, there you go. Kevin Smith had a re-entry with Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which again was a mammoth amount of time since the last one. So there's so many examples of this, and what we tried a little bit to put together was some do's and don'ts and some good examples and some reasons that maybe some work and some don't. Paul, I think we both agree that there are horrendous examples, and then there are great examples, and there's a lot of stuff in between. So there's got to be some rhyme or reason to why it works or why it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking we kick on into the do's. What do you say?
Yes. Yeah. We'll kick on to the do's of how to recapture the magic. as you said, we're not bearing the lead on this. So if you don't want to see the bad parts, you can skip those. But don't go anywhere. Ring that notification bell.
Like and subscribe.
Follow.
So like we'd put this down, and Paul, there wasn't a whole lot of time for us to collaborate this week because of work, but one of the big do's is respect the time has passed and write it into your story. You know, just don't try this kind of, oh well, look, we're just going to continue on. We're going to make it. Everybody just wants to see another Avatar, maybe whatever might be the next one to get it wrong. Who knows? I'm just throwing digs at Avatar because I know people love it. I'm sorry. I'm being cheeky there. But one of the key things is that you are entering another chapter in a franchise. You can't just pretend that 20 years haven't passed for us. You can absolutely pick your story up where it left off, but you have to be conscious that your audience may have watched it when they were 12, 20 years ago, and now they're 32. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to keep the changing demographic, the people who are going to be seeing this for the first time, and the people who grew up maybe watching, all 7 of your original movies.
Yeah, like finding that balance as well, which was an interesting one for the Matrix. Yeah, finding that balance of kind of like, yeah, mentioning the fact that, yeah, 10 years have passed or 20 years have passed, kind of thing, and then writing it into your, like, interweaving it into your story, even like just mentioning it once, and that's your start point, kind of thing, which is surprisingly where Bill and Ted kind of came from, where they were just like, they literally just do a narrative at the start, where it's like they just kept trying to make the song that was meant to bring everybody together, and it just has them doing it has like shots of doing weird music and stuff like that,
Yeah.
kind of going into like New York elements and stuff, and you're just like, wow, they are really losing it, and that's where the movie starts. It's essentially that they're just losing their musicalness and stuff, which is great. It's just like, cool, we got a starting point, we understand that that the things have moved on, and here we go, kind of thing.
And I believe that being controversial makes good internet. So I'm trying it out. I like one of the examples that I wanted to use for a good example of this, that respecting the times past and weaving it in, is Tron Legacy. Paul, you and I are maybe the only two. We might be the only two people in this fan club, but I actually think Tron Legacy was a good follow up. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, and there's plenty wrong with it. And yes, the de-aging was ropey, to say the least. It was pretty horrendous. I would love them to be able to go back and do it properly now, because having 2 Jeff Bridges is always cool. But they did it. Their opening scene, and I've thrown up a little screenshot of it, their opening scene was very much to go, hey, back after the last film happened, we're about to make this whole film about a second generation. You have your exposition, you have Flynn explaining to the kid what he did in Tron, what he did in his Matrix, let's say, and how things had gone. So he did all the exposition and all the setup. But more importantly, when he leaves, it sets up what this story really becomes about. Because it's not just about Tron. It's not just about going back to that world. It's about a father leaving his son, not knowing that he wasn't coming back necessarily, but a son missing their father, and that journey that his son went on. And, nothing better than saying to the audience, we know if you saw the first film, it's a long time ago. We know if you've only recently saw it, you're going to know that it's aged and it's from another time. So yes, they updated the graphics, but they were also clever enough to go, okay, your protagonist is now nicely distant from the original one, but we're going to have them both in the movie, and we're actually going to be able to tell the story of them trying to find each other, not just the story of Tron.
Tron does it really kind of well. Like it gives you the nostalgia quite a like it gives you the nostalgia up front in a lot of ways, and then moves on steadily with the kind of, it's like it's keystone moments kind of thing, where it goes, here's the part that old fans want to hear about and stuff like that, and feel comfortable and wrapped in that nice blanket of a story that they used to know, and then here's the keystone moment, and then we move on with the understanding of that, which Tron does well. And I think several, like, I think sort of Ghostbusters Afterlife does a similar job to us as well, but it more, instead of kind of front loading that part. It nicely intertwines it throughout the story a lot. Like that's the other way of doing this is like with Tron Legacy, they front loaded a little bit and then they kind of give you the kind of like fan service throughout the thing. With this, with Afterlife, they intertwine us all the way through the story, which is really really well done. Like so you get this kind of, it's a sense of a world that actually this happened in, kind of thing, and it naturally comes out in
Yeah.
the story. So it's good. It's nice. It's not like 20 years in the future, kind of thing, and then it just like has like, I'm really hoping that it doesn't have like in Top Gun, it doesn't have like 20 years in the future, and it just has him still like Tom Cruise or Maverick still driving a motorcycle beside the airport, and you're just like, move on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I can just see you now shouting at him from the side of the volleyball court. Get off the court, old man. Or off the beach. Look, the reason I picked Tron Legacy is very, very simple. It is a great example. If you think, and really, I mean, really think about what Tron is as a movie, the original, and what any follow-up years later was going to be. Technology is what it was based around, and it moves faster than just about anything else. So they were going to have to deal with updating all of that. And they could have got lost in the idea that, look how we're making, what used to be a DAT tape is now a USB, what used to be this is now that. They didn't. They were smart enough to kind of, instead of making their protagonist the son and making him just curious about Tron and having his own new adventure, they managed to actually just make it what most good stories are. They made it a personal story about a son trying to find and then reconcile and then understand and eventually, spoiler alert, try and rescue his father. So yeah, it's I'm hoping that it's getting loads of hate over in the comments. Can we check?
yeah, I just want to put it. Yeah, they don't get bogged down in gritty details of kind of updating everything, kind of thing. We just naturally are they don't babysit the audience and kind of going, the fact that like USBs are now the thing, or like cloud and stuff like that. I know I'm sounding like an old man now, but they kind of like let you kind of just go, yeah, you understand. So
You almost accidentally made a new meta version of Old Man Shouts at Clouds, but it was Old Man Shouts at the Cloud.
yeah. So yeah. Pop culture wants to ask a question, which is the question is, who is the new ones made for? Is it for the current 12-year-olds, the 30 or the 32-year-olds that were 12 when they first saw it? I feel that when it goes wrong for the studios and the audiences. Yeah, when it goes wrong for the studios, it goes wrong for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we both agree on that. Yeah, audience.
For sure.
If it goes wrong for the studio, it goes wrong for the audience a lot, kind of thing. But who do you think these are made for?
Well, look, I'll be honest with you. I've said that it is all a cynical money grab, which I've never had a problem with as long as they let the artists drive the ship after that to try and make them their money, which is why some of these work well and why some of them don't. I think when studios are probably thinking, here we have a bit of IP, we have our own intellectual property that, and I am the target audience. It's like before he gets too old to care, and while he still has enough income to want to spend it on our movies or our merch or whatever, like I'm one of the people that they're trying to drag the last out of. There'll be a Doogie Howser movie if they hadn't just done a Doogie Howser TV show. Like there's very few things in my childhood or even before my childhood that people aren't trying to reboot and use up. And Paul, you're only a little bit behind me. You're starting to see that wave coming for your youth as well. And it's going to be, once it passes both of us, it's going to be, that 10 years after us, we're going to see Friends being really rolled over the coals or whatever else it might be. So I think they're making them with that in mind, but they know that to make maximum box office, you have to get everybody in. So that's the good ones do get everybody in.
Yeah, I agree there. It's kind of, it's trying to get in fresh blood into the franchise, because what happens now is that if Afterlife or The Matrix 4 is for some strange reason the first one that you see, you're going to go back and watch the other ones. You're going to go, what the hell's going on? What's all this stuff about? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or the fact is that even before you go to see like Matrix or Afterlife, you're going to look back and have a look at them before you even go to the cinema. So like they're making their money in some form of distribution kind of thing to get you involved, and then it's to as you said, squeeze the last moments out of us, the fans that they grew up with, kind of thing. I think enough that we won't get pissed off and ruin it for them. That's the thing. So like they need to pander to the original fan base of the franchise while trying to introduce the or making the world um easy enough for new fan groups to join in, kind of thing. That's the balance that these movies have to make in a lot of ways, kind of thing. Because like if okay, Ghostbusters is not something I grew up with. As in, it's not the it's not the movie I watched them because I'm a big nerd of sci-fi and stuff like that, and I fell in love with them. Now, if I came out with like if I was like old like young enough that Afterlife was the first films, like you don't need to pander to me. I'm gonna go watch the other ones, kind of thing, and all you need to do is just make me more interested in my movie, which
Well,
is the Afterlife one.
we're the perfect, you know, you've brought up the perfect example, and we're the perfect two people for it, because I did grow up with Ghostbusters, and I remember like the VHS store that we got to rent from in our town. It was I think the first VHS cassette, because we didn't have a video player too early. They were expensive back then, but when we finally got one, it was like Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters is part of who I am. That original movie, my love for Bill Murray goes, it comes from Stripes and a lot of other things, but I can't deny that Ghostbusters solidified it. Bill's a hero for a reason. I can't imagine what type of person I would be had I not spent as many hours watching Ghostbusters, and I know the person I would be probably wouldn't be doing a podcast with you about movies. So, like, it's seminal for me, but that's where Afterlife, to do number two, understand nostalgia, but don't rely on it for everything. Make it relevant, move the story forward, or at least grow. And the way I think Ghostbusters did that, and the reason I chose the GIF that's up there now, having characters in the movie reference how cool Ghostbusters was, it helped for people like me. It really did help. I came out of Afterlife. I know a lot of people said, "Oh, there were too many nods." Yes, there were maybe too many nods, but there was a respectful understanding of we're telling a new story, which I really enjoyed, but we're also dealing with the fact that what happened. And having Paul Rudd be a proxy for someone like me, I thought was genius. Have him be like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. They were the biggest thing when I was younger." And I thought that was a good way to understand nostalgia without getting too lost in it. I know some people will disagree with me. I don't think Ghostbusters Afterlife lost itself in nostalgia. I really don't. I think the young cast in it had the majority of screen time, told their own story, and were phenomenal.
Is it McKenna Grace
Mm-hmm.
is the lead actor? Can I just say that keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
Cause like she
Yeah.
is incredible in this. It is like
Yeah.
I wish there's now a moment in my life that now I wish this was my movie, because that as a main character, her as a main
Yeah.
character, is incredible.
Yeah.
Like I sat there going like, Jesus, if someone was
Yeah.
like, if someone like this was like, or they had written someone like this when I was young, man, I'd be absolutely like, probably be like, I probably wouldn't do a podcast like this. I'd probably be a scientist, but like, hopefully somewhere in there, the podcastness would be out there as well. But isn't she like, she's incredible, and
I can't agree more, man. Like her character was well written, I thought, but what she brought to the screen, and sorry if I blew the mic out there a bit, what she actually managed to achieve from an acting performance. I left that movie, as I don't know if we really even talked about it. I left that movie kind of emotional. Like it was Ghostbusters Afterlife could have disappointed or could have amazed me. It didn't do either. It just really, I thought it was wonderful. I had a wonderful cinema experience, and I loved, and it's why it could make any one of the categories on this list for dues. But her performance, the whole way home in the car, my my wife was talking away to me because she knows Ghostbusters meant so much to me, and we're talking away about it. And I'm like, but that young actress, like she's Meryl Streep someday. She's just incredible. And she's older now because they shot it a while back. So I started watching interviews that they were doing on the press tour, and she's gotten noticeably older. And I'm like, wow, she's already growing up to be, Ghostbusters was a while ago, so she'll start showing up as a teen, proper like older teen actress very soon. So
Yeah,
yeah, if I was in the
one to watch.
acting game right now, I'd be worried if I fit the profile to be running up and against her for parts.
Yeah, and yeah, like yeah. So with the nostalgia buzz going all the way through it and having a proxy, as you say, with Paul Rudd, yeah, it really does. Like, let's not fanboy over
Yeah,
like the Igor Spangler child, like grandchild, because we could probably do an entire like
and I might
breakdown of
cry.
just that movie as well. Um, but yeah, like it's yeah, like actually, like I said, the Igor like the which is Spangler's kind of like grandchild, perfectly cast, perfectly written in the sense that you get a sense of like Egon's character in her. So like like which is great. So you're kind of watching this group form together as like the original Ghostbusters and the Ghostbusters the 2016 one as well. And I hope they do some kind of crossover if they do not do another film. I'd love to see the 2019 gets or 2016 one get some love with this. Um, but yeah, like it, like using nostalgia to kind of bring you along by the heartstrings, um, is really really good. It can be really really bad. It can be too much, but balanced well, you get this whole like the original fans are happy. They're like, I agree with you. By the way, I don't think they did too much. I definitely think they did enough throughout the film of nods to the old fans kind of thing. So
And do you think? Okay, so we've talked Bill and Ted a little bit, and we've talked Tron and Ghostbusters. One of the things, and I guess I'll throw Bill and Ted back up for now. The third kind of do. Make sure you have a story and plot that would stand on its own. Now,
yeah,
I believe that the films we've just talked about, they do. They do actually have their own story. So you can see them as a single movie, and it is a story that has all of the elements. It has its three act in all these cases. Um, but it does, and I'm checking my notes. It does use some of the mechanisms that are previously explained. So it doesn't waste the idea. Like Bill and Ted's doesn't waste the idea that you have time travel. That's part of it. And it doesn't waste the idea that people who are familiar will have knowledge. Same thing with Tron, same thing with Bill and Ted. They're good at that. But they didn't make their story only about that. They made them about the people, the place, the experience, the journey, whatever it might be. They didn't just kind of fall into the okay, well we'll just remake the first one completely, or we'll essentially just fall back on our premise.
hmm yeah, like like they didn't over explain the proton packs. They didn't over explain the booths kind of thing. They didn't have to be this like proton pack uses it's used to catch ghosts, has a half life about 5,000 years. Like bringing back all the information that was brought throughout the other films. Same thing for Bill and Ted kind of thing and Tron. Like we weren't when we saw the light bikes, when we saw the bar for the light bikes, we weren't like, what's going on here? Like they were just like, you know what it is. If you don't, give it 2 seconds, you're gonna know what it is,
Yeah,
kind
that'll
of
come
thing.
to you.
Like yeah, like it's in no way bogging down the story by trying to go, oh yeah, sorry, the little box thing with the stripes on it. That's a trap. You know, they use the lasers to grab them, then they wheel in a trap, and then they press the button, and they all right, back to the story. They don't
Yeah.
bog them down. They just go, it's a trap. Ghosts are in it. There you go. Let's go on, and like which is nice. You know,
Hmm. I think so.
because it's too like if because let's just say it. If the Matrix 4 decided that it was going to explain every single tiny little piece in it, which it tries to in a lot of ways,
Mm.
you'd be there for hours kind of going like there should just be so much like there should just be like the Matrix and then someone comes sliding in from the side and is going, if you want to understand this film, you have to watch the other three. It's not like, I'm sorry, you have to watch the other three.
Yeah.
We're not expect, kind of thing. That's how difficult sometimes the concepts were and lost and tried to explain kind of thing.
I guess that can move us on to our dotes then, Paul. Because
Well,
yeah, sorry, over to the
let's jump
comments.
onto the comments just
Shoot.
because I can see it moving,
Good stuff.
kind of thing. So, which goes, let's go. The weirdliest of Tron Legacy and Cinema Pull before we were friends. That's true. Those Tron Legacy, the de-aging work since he was not human. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Good points. I've seen some negative press about the film, blaming the poor box office on the older audience not liking it. Yeah, I don't.
That would have been Tron Legacy, yeah.
Yeah. Nostalgia sells. Oh my god, why is there
a Doogie Howser? I haven't watched any, but I saw it when I was browsing one of the streaming services. I'm gonna jump to Brew's comment actually, because it's an interesting parallel. It's kind of like a band coming back together after 20 years and releasing a new modern single to get the old crowd and some younger fans. Yeah, it's an interesting parallel. Nobody stops a band coming back and releasing music years later. If you do it right and don't just try and cash in on your originals, then you can have a rebirth in your career.
Yeah. Like the points of Matrix not being the first film of someone, but Afterlife being, like the problem is that Matrix hasn't been made accessible enough to a new crowd that they aren't forced into. Like you can watch Afterlife and then go back. Matrix, you could. It's damn hard though from watching it, kind of thing.
True.
What else is there?
Oh, well, there's a question. Did we include Star Wars in our big gap between sequels? I think we did talk about Star Wars at one point, yes. But we had a lot of unexpected entries in there. Everything from Bambi to Fantasia. So check that video out. It's one of the videos I watched it again recently, obviously before this video. I'm really proud of it. It's like 12 minutes long, folks. You can, or 8 minutes long. You can definitely enjoy it. It's good.
Yeah. I'm just reading the last one.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's all about Star Wars. Sorry, I'm catching up.
You're all right. I want to say that we've got to that don'ts point now, and you did transition nicely by talking about Matrix. Now I know I want to get this out up front. Myself and Paul have not talked about what we feel about the Matrix yet, so we're going to kind of do that live in front of you. Paul, in a few words, I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. I thought it didn't do a terrible job, but I thought it didn't do a good enough job. Let's say good enough being the important part there. And I used it as an example of a don't. So before we jump into that, what did you think of the Matrix 4?
Oh, this is like you're saying it's not a good or bad movie. You don't believe that it did enough. Like I'm the similar kind of way, but I'm more on like there's some really, like, obviously we're not going to spoil like major plot points or anything. There's some interesting. Okay. So first of all, the keystone moment in this film, I do feel like is a giant middle finger, and we can talk about that moment. It's essentially
Trinity.
Both of them. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's a gigantic middle finger to the fans, and it's propped up by a lot of dollar signs. But there's like the problem is that they introduce so many good concepts into this film that I've just gone, yeah, you've propped this up, the startup with like really dodgy dollar sign moments, and now you've kind of gone, oh yeah, but we got this stuff, and you're just like, why didn't you just start with that stuff?
But you see, and that's it. I'm looking forward to having time offline for both of us to really talk about this. You should see the way we talk when we're not doing it in front of you. You think we're long-winded now? Good God. The first of the don'ts was don't rush to give fans nods every 2 minutes. And I think that's one of the things, quite literally, that don't rush to do it. You can obviously give your nods. Everything we've talked about so far tips the hat to fans. all the way through the movies, but you shouldn't rush to do it from the off. And that's one of the things that let Matrix down. And I'm not, again, this is spoiler free, but there's, and the notes I kind of gave to myself was, tries to use the events of the first film as a story basis overall to make it work as plot point. Yeah, and that's all great. And it's very meta, very, very meta. And I appreciate some of how they tried to do that. Some of it landed a bit hammy for me, but yeah, overall it was okay. It did undermine the viewing experience to have a constant remember this kind of vibe to it, though. It was like, you remember this? Remember this? Yeah, you remember this? And I'm going to spoil a little bit and just say that there's a redo of a Trinity scene. I'll just put it like that. And that put me in the wrong frame of mind. I was like, really? Yeah, I know you're making it part of your story, but really? And that feeling never really went away because they kept doing that sort of thing over and over again. I don't think The Matrix 4 was bad. I just can't recommend it to people. That's a weird thing.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah? I can't recommend it unless you're into it. I can't recommend it to people. Like, if you're into The Matrix, you definitely have to watch it. But as a casual kind of, could you watch this without watching the first movie? No.
Yeah, no. As in, if people were coming to me going, I like The Matrixes, should I go watch M4? I'd be just like, yeah, go watch M4. It's good. You know?
Yeah.
If people were just like, I'm not really into The Matrixes, should I start here? I'd be just like, the fuck you should. No. Like, I pardon my language, but no. Do not go back, watch the other ones, watch the Animatrix, like, you know, delve yourself into the lore a little bit. Because this movie also, the thing that like, I was just using my bleep button, like, it really annoyed me was the fact is that it uses information from a game in it.
Yeah.
So there's a part in it that you only know for the reason because of a game, which just...
What was the final do? Make sure you have a story and a plot that would stand on its own. We should have added into our notes. Don't make sure that people have to have researched every last thing to get everything out of the movie or to get themselves through the movie.
Yeah, like, to go through the do's with the Matrix 4 and how it some ways does this and does this. Respect the timeline has passed. I understand why they did what they did. It gives them a better evolvement of things that have happened. I have no problem with that. Understanding nostalgia, they don't. They just front load everything constantly. It's like an absolute barrage of what you know from the start, from the things. Make sure you have a plot that stands on its own. It doesn't. Like, yeah. It very much, and it's, my problem is that it's one of these films, unlike the Star Wars Awakens films, that skirts that line, skirts the do line of have a storyline that's propped up by itself, and we'll come to it later on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But rushing to give fans nods every 2 minutes, it definitely does that, which is just how it ruins use the nostalgia.
It could be, you know, weirdly, it could have been a better movie. Without a whole lot of effort, from my point of view. Like, I think if somebody went in and did another draft, I think they could have come out with something, because it would be more, in the case of The Matrix, it would be more about taking things away than adding things in, because they had the bones. Like, it had a good solid skeleton to it. It just got built wrong. But yeah, so Paul, I think Matrix, we'll come back to it. But the second, or the maybe one of the most kind of often fallen into don'ts, is don't rely solely on the original premise. It just turns your movie into a gimmick. So like we were talking about with Tron or any of that, if you rely solely on the premise of the original, and I think I chose something that, I don't know how many people remember Speed.
Yeah, Speed 2.
Speed and Speed 2 being the best examples. Just of, all right, what's the premise of Speed? If you wrote it down badly, it's, you know, Sandra Bullock driving a bus that can't slow down. Speed 2 is Sandra Bullock on a boat that can't stop. And in both cases, there's a mad bomber involved. It's the reason Speed 2 didn't work isn't because there weren't talented people involved. It's because there was no soul to that movie at all. And it really was relying solely on the speed idea, the runaway train idea, the runaway bus, the runaway, as this case, which I don't know how they ever thought it was going to work, runaway cruise liner, for those of you who haven't seen Speed 2. But Paul, I'm before I bring up the one that I know is going to set you off, like, do you think the room that people were in when they were doing a Speed sequel were like, okay, so runaway something, let's just do a runaway something again?
I I feel like they probably, yeah, they, as you put in the notes, literally they probably went to the whiteboard, like, some guy in a suit went up to the whiteboard with all the creatives of Speed One, and he just went, something else can't slow down,
Yeah.
and then just went, that's what we want, go figure it out, and then left the room, and then like someone turned around and just went, cruise ship, and everyone went, well, that's lunch.
Here you go, we're done.
you know?
Jenny, you get a promotion. Well done.
Like, it does feel like the pitch meeting for that was a bit much, kind of thing. Like, it's, I wouldn't say it's, yeah, it's the don't of kind of like using your premise and then diluting it by essentially going, okay, insert vehicle here, insert mad bomber's reason here, like not even insert mad bomber, just insert mad bomber's reasons, kind of thing. Like, that's how bad it is.
It's true.
That it can be, because like Bill and Ted, going back to the dudes, Bill and Ted, it's time travel again. Like, but that's fine because they don't point to it, and they're not overly saturating you by going. In fact, they do one thing that probably a lot of people were like, why didn't you just do this? Like, and they went, that's a good plot point. We'll just do that movie, kind of thing, which is nice. Whereas some other movies on this list are very much
Well, yeah. And
of it.
can I tell you a little story from a time gone by about time travel? And remember, the don't here is don't rely solely on the premise, the original premise, to just write your film. And the most famous time travel movie in a lot of ways is actually just about a robot who came from the future to kill a nice lady who is basically going to have her Jesus boy to save the world at some point. It was an incredible film, Terminator. Terminator 2 was a cat and mouse game between two robots, two androids, two whatever you want. It was fantastic. But by the time they got to things like Terminator Genesis, and I think, Paul, I'm going to look at the note I sent you. My exact wording was, Terminator Genesis did this by making everything about Skynet sending shit through time. Yeah. And then it's like, compare that to T2, where it was a cat and mouse game between two Terminators and a Jesus child with emo hair. So yeah, I can't forgive the latter day Terminators because they didn't realize that what made the first one great wasn't just the idea of time travel. It was the idea of time and inevitable apocalypses and the ideas of fate, but also family protection. What is humanity? That's, very heavily and well done in Terminator 2 in some ways. By the time they did Genesis, Jesus, did they just go, so, Skynet sends stuff through time. And Arnold Schwarzenegger will be in it somewhere, won't he?
Yeah, like, I think I was talking to It Takes Two cast members on this one, which was about the trailer, how in T2 they do change the premise quite a bit in the sense of the bad guy from the first one is no longer the bad guy from the second one. Spoiler alert. It's ruined in the trailer anyway, which is the biggest twist, which would have been the biggest amazing cinema twist in the world.
Yep.
Kind of thing, which is see, so by changing that simple fact, by going, yeah, but it's not the robot you think, it's fresher, and then you kind of go, okay, well, now there's two unstoppable forces, kind of thing, playing a chew toy moment over this Jesus child, the savior child, kind of thing, and you're like, cool, this is feels like a natural evolvement of what's going on, kind of thing. Yeah, Genesis is literally just like, wonder, like, I'm just going to send as much stuff back. It's like it was just like, this is carpet. Like, if it had the ability to send everything back, why didn't it just send a robot back with itself, go into like the network and just plug in and just do it sooner?
It is a film that I don't know if we should even waste any more time on.
Yeah,
Um, I'll be honest, we only have one more kind of don't, but I want to check the comments maybe after it, if that's okay, Paul.
yeah, go for it.
Um, and that is, don't remake the original and think people will be happy just to go back. So we kind of hinted at that there a little bit. So I was more talking on that, and we were both talking on that second one about just using your original premise. The idea of just remaking the whole original film. Oh, there were many examples that presented themselves, Paul. I chose for some imagery. Where have I got young Mary Poppins? It is so weird to kind of see people, because people go, oh, but it wasn't a scene for scene remake, not like blah blah blah. That's why it's even more egregious. It wasn't a scene for scene, but it felt like it was, because they're like, okay, and this is this bit from the first film with a slight tweak, and this is this bit from the first film with a slight tweak. It's insulting. And it's not like I'm the world's biggest defender of the original Mary Poppins film, but I did go to the cinema to see it when I was a child because I have sisters and I didn't get to pick the movie. So I really ended up enjoying it. I just told them I didn't, because that's the way boys were in the 80s.
Well, this is where we have a difficult one, because this is one of the don'ts, and this is the one I would have, like, I guess this is the one that is like, this is real difficult to pull off. It's a don't for the majority,
Yeah.
because there's like Star Wars Force Awakens practically remakes Episode 4. Like, it pretty much does. So like, but it does it in such a way that it's like. So what you're saying is, don't remake the film for shot, like with an alteration of shot to shot. Understand that something came before it. This is the kind of, you can do remakes of the original one as long as you also follow our dues as well.
Exactly.
That's
The,
the kind
the,
of, yeah.
the separation between do and don't is that thin. It's like there's nothing. You want to stay the right side of the line, because they all are, as you've heard tonight, they all are unbelievably similar and unbelievably linked. If you want to use elements and plot points, absolutely. Don't just remake the whole film. You want to have some nods and some nostalgia, absolutely. Just don't use the entire premise. Don't use whatever mechanism as your entire reason for writing the story. Like, they're all both sides of a coin. And I think, and I'm really glad you brought up Star Wars Force Awakens, because it will really annoy a load of people, because people get very emotional about Star Wars. But I agree with you. I went to see Star Wars Force Awakens twice. And I went to see it with my brother and some of his kids, which was really interesting for me because they loved it. I really liked it the first time. And I came out going, that's brilliant. Palate cleanser. The prequels are now, they're cleansed. We can now start making other Star Wars movies. People can get over however they felt about Jar Jar Binks. And that's what it needed to do. So I didn't mind that it was A New Hope Part 2 or New Hope 2.1. It did what it needed to do. I thought it did it well. I thought it ran the line right down the middle in a lot of ways. Right down the middle. For a lot of people, they felt it went massively one side or the other, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah. I guess yeah. My point with it is, yeah, it is like what a New Hope, but they nod so much, like, so well to the films that come out. The
Oh,
also thing is, they don't go so far back. They don't go so far back to Episode 1 to 3, which isn't, not to say that I'm not overly fans with people agreeing to it. I'm more saying that they don't go so far back, that they go as far as they need to. to be able to do most of the do's and stuff like that, which is great. And there is a couple of other films, not off the top of my head to think of right now, but there's a couple of other films that kind of skirt the line of a remake of the film, of the original film, but with the do's on our list, kind of thing, which is
Yeah.
great. But it works fairly like rarely, kind
Yeah.
of thing, to be able to skirt that line so well that you fire off into orbit, kind of thing. Kind of so
And
like
you know what, Paul? Use the power of the people. We're going to go over the comments in a minute, and what I'd love to see by the time we get through a few of them is your suggestions out there, folks. What do you think are the good or the bad examples of sequels? And not sequels. Sorry, actually, I got that wrong. Franchise entries after a long time, because that's the other thing to try and remember. This is about distance as much as anything, and I know I brought up speed, and technically I know Ghostbusters had 2016 before it, but canonically the way they're doing it, different story. But
yeah.
all that having been said, if you were to pull up some good examples, what would they be? What's come back after a long time, fired in a new chapter, and actually got it right? Or, because we all love a bit of Schadenfreude, who really messed it up? So Paul, to the comments we go, is it?
Yeah, I think A-Team is one of those films. It's not an entry in the franchise, but it's
That,
close enough to it.
yeah, a lot of people hated A-Team, and I actually enjoyed that movie.
I think it captured a lot of the old moments,
Yeah.
but
Now to the comments.
I think yeah.
When I first saw it, I liked it, but the more I talk about it, it seems to not hold up. I dislike it more. I wish I knew what we were saying at the time, so that could have
I
been
think it's I think it's to do with the Matrix.
okay. Everything I liked about the Matrix, they moved on too quick, and the stuff that I didn't like, they did too much. That's a really good way of putting it, actually, as well. Jump in at any time, Paul, because otherwise I'll just go through them
Yeah,
all.
I'm watching. I'm actually watching it after the stream, so we'll report back. Yeah, please do about how you feel about the Matrix.
Mm.
It's a movie that if in the box set you're not mad about, but you don't watch off. Yeah, like I think actually I would probably prefer if I was ordering these. Which will we do a movie about the Matrix ordering? How we like them.
I will.
We'll talk about it after. I
Yeah,
won't do
but
it now.
like I can tell you that it's not likely that I'm going to agree to be on screen saying anything but the first one being the best one.
Oh
So
yeah, no, that's I'm not. Yeah, no, like there's no. I think we can just be like, we'll start at two. Uh, which goes Die Hard 2 does what Speed 2 tried to, stuck in an airport versus building. But see, this is the
yeah,
interesting thing. Die Hard 2, they're not stuck in the airport. They could have, like, John McClane is stuck there because his wife is in the air. He
is
can
is stuck in
technically
the
just leave.
airplane. Yeah. Although I mean,
Like,
and I get the point that pop culture is trying to make, though. On paper, Die Hard 2 does what Speed 2 did, but it does bring so much more. Like, it does a great job of kind of rehashing the first one. Runaway bus, runaway boat. This was John McClane in a tower dealing with terrorists. This time he's in an airport dealing with terrorists. But yeah, I think Die Hard 2 stands up really well. What was the Danish name for Die Hard 2 again? Ah, damn it, we only did that recently. It's like Maximum Die Hard or
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
shit.
yeah, it was something like that. Like they also give John McClane a lot more characters to talk to, which is another thing that they needed to do, kind of thing. Mary Poppins was hard to watch. Force Awakens is enjoyable for me, but it's a thin line. Yeah, no. So see, this is the thing: is Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is practically a shot-for-shot remake, just with different actors and alterations a little bit. Whereas Star Wars, it takes a lot from New Hope and adds itself to it as well. So
Yeah.
I think Halloween 2018 is a great example.
Have you seen Halloween 2018? Have you seen that wasn't the first of the Rob Zombies, was it, or was that Rob Zombie's first Halloween
No,
movie?
the 2018 one was the one with uh, which was Jodie, not your mum coming back.
Oh,
Um,
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came back to reprise her role. It was very good.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think it is the one that I'm talking about.
Do you
I'm
know?
not gonna go mad.
Someday, and I'm going to wait a few more years. When screens get bigger for everyone, we'll have to redo the Halloween graphic with all the entries in the franchise and how they're linked, because they're still throwing more and more in every year. But
They are,
they've
yeah.
they've taken breaks and come back strong, and also come back weekly.
Yeah, because they're the only problem is that they have a new one out as well, which it really feels like, yeah, it's the follow on essentially from the first one. They kind
Right.
of skip all of them, so it's another timeline. Um, I have a problem with the newer one, the one that they just released.
Oh, the most recent one.
I
It
think, yeah,
takes a village to kill Michael Myers. I didn't. I've only seen the trailer, so that's. I'm not spoiling anything. That was what I got from a trailer. I haven't seen the movie. Um, Die Hard with a Vengeance is another great example. Well, both Paul and I love Die Hard with a Vengeance, and there was enough of a gap, wasn't there? I can't remember what the gap was, but it was more than 5 years, I think. So it
hmm.
counts. Um,
The first Muppet movie was a good comeback.
there you
Yeah,
go. Um,
true.
Gavin, I don't know how serious you are about this. Terminator missed a trick. Each movie should have been the amount of robots they send back. T2 had two, T3 had three, etc., etc. And that's the only franchise that you want to see Terminator 77. Um, just because it'd be weird. But yeah, Terminator missed a lot of tricks. Because if anything, their premise left themselves open to not just keep inceptioning themselves. They could have reset and rebirthed within their own franchise really easily and told new stories, and gone to new places. It's one of the things that we didn't mention talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife. How great was it that they didn't go, oh yeah, this needs to be in New York?
Yeah,
Genius. Pure
yeah,
genius.
really helped out with it. Give you a fresh look on it.
Okay.
Oh, there's a new Scream film this year, isn't there? Be interested. Yeah, yeah. There's a new Scream 4, I think it's called. It's up
Uh,
on. It's
Scream.
up.
Well, it's. I think they're just calling this one Scream again because they've already had Scream 4 with the 4 in the middle of the Scream as the
Oh
A, I
yeah,
think.
no.
I, th-
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
no,
this
I.
is another one of those crazy ideas where you just rename it the same thing as the first. So someday we'll be doing a Scream graphic just like a Halloween graphic where we'll have to stop the video for a few seconds to go, okay, they're both called Halloween. Actually, there's 3 called Halloween. There's 2 called Scream. There's 6 called Fast and something. Anyway,
Scream
I
fast, go faster.
be fastest. It's like conjugating verbs for those people. What?
Scream hard, go faster. The first ever horror Die Hard Fast and the Furious crossover movie.
I
You
would
heard it here for
like.
your first.
I would like very much because I had so much fun last year doing the Star Trek and Fast and Furious are just the same franchise, which everybody now believes. By the way, I've heard it said at the bus stop. I think we should take 2 other franchises that we can, in some, I don't know, meth binge, mushroom laden trip, work out how we could actually say that they're the same thing. And if you want to nominate Scream and Die Hard, they have the same number of movies probably now. Hmm. There's maybe not enough characters, but yeah, we'll work it out.
Eventually there is.
That's true.
It just gets through a lot. Um, yeah,
Just checking
I'm
because
very proud.
we're about to head to wrap up, so I just want to check the comments, folks, because we don't want to leave anybody out. Thank you very much for your participation, and thanks for putting up with a bit of a shoddy video. Thanks to me. The whole 10 yards with Bruce Willis, Matthew Perry, and Kevin Pollak, and it's the whole 11 yards, I think, is the sequel. And it's a masterpiece, you say? Okay, I never watched the sequel. And it was Amanda Peet, I think, was in her heyday back then too. This is like the whole premise of our podcast. There you go. Yeah, actually, we should point out that there are some people commenting also have properties out there on places such as YouTube and Spotify. If you're ever looking for their details, they're in the description down below. But I think we should shout them out right now, Paul. Go check out Popculture, doing some proper Disney content of a Wednesday. That's one of the things that Popculture was going to be kicking off. Really looking forward to that. So that's Popculture 33. Search term on YouTube does now find that, but link in the description down below. And then It Takes Two podcast on Spotify, which also linked down below. And Paul, that leaves me one last person to hype, and that is the Queen. I think she's done it. No, sorry, it's Paul. It's Paul and his friends over at... You were surprised by the Queen.
Putting me in the same league as the Queen there for a second, I thought. But I was just like, I do not do a Christmas speech.
What?
So...
You're both older than you look, and I don't listen to either of you on Christmas Day. So Paul gets to flex his other creative muscles with a fine group of drinking D&Ders. Paul, do you want to pump your side gig?
Which is I do Homebrew Quest. It's a drinking Irish culture based D&D game where we drink and the name of the beers it affects the world. And it's every second Tuesday on YouTube. Homebrew Quest, the name. So I play Randy.
And I would very much like to just check with the comments, because I realize what I probably said, and I'm sure when I look back, Whole 10 Yards was the sequel to the Whole 9 Yards, and I think I said Whole 11 Yards. I added one in my head. I'm quite tired. Yes, because Whole 9 Yards is the actual phrase that they used for the first movie. So thank you very much for the recommendation. I will check out that sequel, because I'm kind of curious now that somebody's recommended it. But most importantly, last comment there, Star Trek reboot was okay, only because they built a new timeline, but they lost their direction after one. So after the first. It's that last part I couldn't agree with more. It definitely lost its direction, and I think that's a huge shame. The follow-up movies...
I don't agree.
Brilliant. Something me and Paul don't agree on. That means there's a video coming about it, because that is when our content is at its best. So, rating the Star Trek movies, the JJ years.
Yeah, we could do that. That sounds fun.
Cool. Ocean 17, what's happening?
With the ocean of movies of just going, let's just get worse, you know. Anyway, yeah. So, which is to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, share us out. It really helps us. Which goes out. Which goes comment down below everything like you want. Tell us if there's any movies that skirt the line of kind of good and bad, the do's and don'ts that we've listed out here, which goes so I guess I've been Paul,
and I've been Patrick,
and we've been Hear Us Out. And thanks very much.
And I would like to find the button to do the thing with the thing, and that would be now. Bye, everybody.